What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about why I am getting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is a video series I do where I talk about an upcoming game and talk about whether I'm getting it, not getting it, or I'm in between. And, with Infinite Wealth out, and actually there's been other surprise hits this year that you didn't really see coming, at least how good they would be. But with us now entering, the mid part of February, Rebirth, yes, it's really the next big game that releases, but it probably would be a top 2, top 3 most anticipated game of the entire year of 2024. So we're so close. I'm so ready for it. I do get more and more excited every day. The state of play they did, the long trailers that they tend to do. I love it. I'm so ready. I've talked in the past. I played 7 Remake when it first came out, but I replayed it just a few weeks back. And I'm not a massive Final Fantasy fan. I've really only played a handful. 16. I played a little of 15. I played Remake, but that's really it. And up until I replayed Remake, I didn't even know the full scale or full scope of the original game. But when I replayed it, I actually went and I looked at the lore, I looked at the ending explained, the story explained kind of videos of Final Fantasy VII, because I really just want to be in, this lore, in this story of Final Fantasy VII. So I think I'm honestly more ready than ever before going into Rebirth. And again, the game looks insane. The demo was awesome. Visually, Remake looked so good. This game, I think, is going to look really good. There were some questions about performance mode, in the demo, but it did look really good. The scale is going to be so much bigger too. I'm not going to say that's like a huge defense or anything if it doesn't look so great. I think it's going to look fine, honestly. And some of those cutscenes, some of those like CG cutscenes that they did in Remake, there's only like 4 or 5 of them in the game, but when they hit, they're like Advent Children on steroids, right? Like it's literally basically a movie at that point. So I am expecting a really, good looking game. The combat is something I remember liking 4 years ago. Replaying it, I think I got more into it than ever. I think I was using the characters better than ever before. So when it comes to Rebirth, number one, bigger cast, right? You're going to be able to kind of swap more people out, Red 13, so on and so on. But actually, the demo would come into this part of the conversation. The demo showed in very short time, at least with Cloud, right? Now, Sephiroth, I highly doubt we're going to play all that often, in Rebirth, but Cloud, the fight, his fighting is so much better than what is already really good in Remake. His long distance attacks, kind of the fluidity, the abilities, any of his abilities, Braver or Triple Slash or anything like that, they feel really, they do feel so much better now than they did just a few weeks ago, when I replayed Remake. So if that's just him, playing as Aerith, who I really enjoy playing as. Aerith and Barret were kind of my go-to. You didn't have much of a choice, in who you chose in Remake, but whenever you had those two, I felt like pretty darn good. Tifa, her abilities were always amazing, but I just never really knew how to use her, whether it was like me swapping to her and actually playing. But again, Cloud, I think, feeling so much better, and he was already really good. Like the combat in this game, it's got a flow to it, and it's got some strategy to it. And if you just add upon that, the foundation's already there and it's already really, really good. So if he's much better, then I can't wait, try out Yuffie. Yuffie is a really fun character to play in the DLC, right? So like having her back and kind of added abilities, that's going to be a blast. Like I said, Aerith and stuff, they're already fun to play in Remake. So I can't even imagine, how good it would be in Rebirth. So gameplay, I'm excited for. The world, right? Now I say world as in, well, all of the side quests, all of the mini games. When the trailer was shown at the state of play, or really just the state of play in general, right? People were joking and making references to like Infinite Wealth, like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. And I actually think there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because this game, I think, is going to have that foundation. It's going to have that probably really, really good story, and we'll talk about that in a second. It's got the characters. It's got the combat. So it's got a lot of the foundation that made the game before it really good. But they're really going all in on just the amount of time you can spend in this game, right? Which is where kind of Infinite Wealth comes in, right? Just like spending hundreds of hours of your life. And for Final Fantasy, multiple mini games. You get a little taste of the piano one, in the demo, which I think was a blast. And there's going to be so many more. But just the scope of the world, right? The amount of districts or regions, I guess you can call it, right? And just all of the side quests. And then here's the thing. I will say this, though. they do have to make these side quests pretty okay. You know, Final Fantasy 16, I actually really liked it, and that seems to be more of a controversial opinion as time has gone on. I like 16. The weakest part, I think by miles, in 16 was 85% of the side quests were the most basic, bare-bones fetch quests you could come up with in a game. And there were some good ones. There were definitely some good ones that stand out and kind of have more lore to it, or maybe just like a deeper story. But the side quest, I think, was the worst part by a lot in 16. This game, I'm not like worried, but it is something that I think about, absolutely, because I do think if there is going to be a weak link, yes, the story decisions might upset people, but I've generally always been for, what they're doing there. So for me, I could see the biggest problem being side quests. I hope they're good. I think the mini games have a lot of content. Fort Condor, I've always appreciated. I've always liked the piano and just, hey, playing a few different songs or just free playing on your own. Like, I think that can be a blast. And a lot of the mini games they showed at the State of Play, I think, can be really fun and really, it's going to have a lot to it. It's the side quests, just going here and there and talking to people and they tell you to do something. Those are the parts that, look, they've talked about the length of this game, and those are a big part of it. So if you want this game to get into that, 50, 60, 70, 80 hour mark, you'll be doing those things. At least ideally you would. And if they're not that great, people I think would pull away from it. I would personally pull away from it, and the game would be shorter. I don't really care if the game is all that short, but I'm just, throwing that out there. So, I mentioned the story and characters. So, like I said, I'm not like a big Final Fantasy guy. I've gotten more and more into it, like more into 7. I know like the voice change, like the cast change in 7 Remake upset some people. I always like just accepted it just because I was never really too familiar with the cast before. Knowing the story, knowing where it's all going. Look, and I've said this before, in past videos, I appreciate what they're doing. I got to be real. I think you can only do this with like a specific team. This can only work in specific circumstances, and like Nomura and all of them, right? The kind of the creative team of this entire trilogy, I guess, right? The idea that Remake is literally a remake, but it's self-aware, right? Because they're using the lore, they're using the idea of the live stream. Sephiroth, kind of knows, what's coming, and he's working his way around it, right? Trying to shake things up and using whispers to kind of keep things contained, keep Destiny flowing, but then things will change, if Cloud tries to like barrel through it, right? Sephiroth kind of wants him to barrel through a lot of things. So I personally am so into it. I'm huge into convoluted stories. Kingdom Hearts is a go-to. Alan Wake is a go-to. Any of these games. But, Kingdom Hearts I think would be a very good comparison to Final Fantasy. I'm all in on that stuff. So I know it's upset people here and there, but, honestly, I think it's just kind of added mystery because they have kept a lot of things the same, and they've talked so much about, respecting the storyline of 7, but this isn't just your average remake, where you take it and then you just make it, visually appealing for whatever year you're releasing it in, right? Like, the game itself is aware it is a remake, and it's, doing some things differently. So I like that, and I like it in the sense that you can always play 7. And you can play this, and you can get some of 7, maybe even most of 7, but you can also actually get a pretty interesting take, if some things were changed. So I'm excited. Obviously, there's like the big elephant in the room with who, potentially at the end of this game, probably at the end of this game. I want to make a whole video kind of talking about that, but what they do with the story, I'm all in. I hope I wouldn't get like upset at them, but I think just because I've recently come into this stuff, I don't really have a reason to get upset. I think people that maybe been fans, for 27 years, maybe they'd have more of almost like a right than somebody like me. But no, I'm giving it to them. I honestly like I do. I like the changes, and I like that they're taking this remake approach in a different way. They're using the game and using the lore to literally interpret, the word remake differently. And the characters, I think they're phenomenal. I think they did such a good job in 7 Remake. I'm just excited to, even though, like I said, side quests or maybe some things that are supposed to extend the length, even if they don't hit, right? Even if some of them are misses, I think overall, just being in that world is interesting. Like, Midgar is interesting. I know, we've left it, but that world in general is really interesting. The characters are just really cool. Like, everybody's got their own, and like everybody's fun. You know, like Tifa isn't a weak link, or Aerith isn't a weak. They're all Yuffie, Barrett, you know, Red 13. They're all so good, and the cast is just going to expand now, and so you have just a really solid, actually more than solid, cast of characters that we're going to be spending a lot of time with, and then there'll be like serious story, you know, repercussions to it. So I'm ready to go. Like I said, this would be a top 2-3 most anticipated game of the year. At this point, it's probably my number one, and I'm ready to see primarily what they do. Like, I'm really interested where the story deviates, you know, what changes, because there's going to be that big one, and I think that's going to probably be the talk of the community for like the next 3-4 years before, you know, the next game comes out. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.